So, Waleed, first of all, let me just get your overall assessment of the news about Gaddafi today.
Well, first of all, justice was met by those who wanted actually to kill many and have killed many. Gaddafi was the head of a regime that killed Americans, Europeans, many Arabs, his own people. He was behind coup d'etat in Africa. So this was the end of a chapter of a regime that was very bloody.
And yet, this is also a guy that we decided to do business with, and he said, "I'll be your friend. I'll give up my nukes and everything else." A few years ago, and we said, "Okay, let's be friends." Did you? Was that the right thing to do? Did you believe that he was really swearing off his past?
Well, actually, Gaddafi did not renegade his past. He said, I am going to be working with you. I'll let go of these weapons of mass destruction. But he did not go towards reform and democracy. The concerning question is not his fate, because that was provided by his own people. It's who's going to come after. I am very concerned that the Islamist militias who are now taking over Libya may not be exactly the partners that the United States seek to find in Libya for the future. For the next few months, of course, Libya is going to be facing some of the more, violent terrorist attacks of the remnants of Gaddafi and other insurgents. But basically, we will see if the International Council will be able to establish a pluralist, secular democracy the way the administration here and many Europeans think it would be, or it's going to be the surge of a new Islamist militia regime.
And that was one of the points. I think the last time we talked about this, and we talked about whether we should be there, whether we should not, but your question and my question to you was about the rebels and who were they, and nobody seemed to know. Do you have any better feel about who they are today?
Absolutely. I mean, they're not very shy about it. They go on Al Jazeera, the other Arab media, and they clearly say that they want to establish an Islamist state, one of whom, for example, the commander of Tripoli. The military commander of Tripoli today, Mr. Belhaj, has said on Al Jazeera that he would not accept any other government or institutions which are not inspired by Sharia, which is the narrative of the jihadists in general terms. So that is of concern. We missed the boat in the first few months of the revolt in Libya by not seeking to partner with the former military, secular judges, diplomats, who actually triggered the social revolt in the beginning before it was basically seized by the Islamists. Remember, there was an assassination a few weeks ago of the chief of staff of the rebel army. This guy, General Abdel Fattah Yunus, should have been our partner, him and his officers and the NGOs that works with him. He was taken out most likely by the Islamists.
So what happens with Libya now? What do we do? What can the United States do, or are we just an observer in the bleachers?
Well, this question should have been dealt with 6 months ago. Unfortunately, we are minus 80. Let's first of all go by priorities. Number one, we need to make sure that the weapons in Libya, and there are a lot of those that Gaddafi has bought, not just individual weapons. We're not talking AK-47s and RPGs. We're talking anti-planes missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, electronics, all that. If it falls into the hands of the militias, or eventually in the hands of Al-Qaeda, the terrorist organization, we would be paying a huge price for what has been happening in Libya. So we need the United States, which paid the price of supporting NATO in taking down Gaddafi, should be asking the TNC, the Transitional National Council, to make sure that in the next few days and weeks, those weapons are secured. And number two, we want to also tell the TNC that all Libyans, not just the Islamist militias, will have to be part of the process. If that doesn't happen, and we see in Libya what is happening in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood seizing everything, then Libya would have been a failure, not a success.
All right. So since NATO was the leading force on this, does this mean that NATO tries to stay involved, or do they pack up and go home?
Tom, I don't know if we have the luxury of this option anymore. In the first few months when this was happening, we were warning that if you don't strike a deal with partners in Libya, the Islamist militias won't give NATO any role. I mean, it's not that if we want to take that role, they won't let us have that role. Probably if we send a humanitarian ship sailing off the coast of Tripoli or of Benghazi, they may accept that. But any other thing, we may not have that luxury. That's the problem that we're facing right now.
Tell me about the population of Libya. Who are they? Are they devoted Orthodox Islamists that would fall into Islamic government, be favorable to them? Are there Christians? Are there people that are secular? What's the breakdown?
The population of Libya is mostly secular with a strong segment of conservatives. That's like everywhere in North Africa. But the ideological distribution is interesting. There are people on the liberal left in Libya, a very small elite. You have people who are supportive of the Islamist fundamentalist Muslim Brotherhood-like. And in between, you have a large silent majority that has also ethnic groups. I mean, you have a majority of Arabs, but then in the west you have Berber. These are native North African population. In the south, you have black Africans, the Tubus. So it is a cocktail. It's a mixture of a variety of ethnic groups. The overwhelming majority are Muslims. But the real challenge is going to be if the Islamists, the most organized faction in Libya now, and they have the weapons and the other militias, will overwhelm everybody else and create something maybe not as evident as the Taliban, but very close to.
Does Iran play a role here? Are they doing another proxy?
No, this is not an area where the Iranians will have the upper hand, but if the Islamist militias, who in fact would be like the Muslim Brotherhood of Egypt, take over, then their span of influence will be huge. There will be MBs, Muslim Brotherhood, who produce oil and who have petrodollars, and they will be able to influence, events in Tunisia to their west and events in Egypt to their east, and the whole North Africa plateau will be under the influence of these Islamists. Now, once that happens, then they will calculate relationships with the Iranians, and both the Iranians and the Muslim Brotherhood in North Africa may well come close to an alliance against first Israel, no doubt about it, but then against our interests as well.
When you say Islamist, do you mean radical Islamist, or are you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
No, the term in Europe and here in academia means an Islamist is an ideological faction. This is different than Muslim as a regular person. The Islamists are usually somewhere between 5 and 10%. These are the fundamentalists. So we don't use the term fundamentalist. We use the term Islamist.
Could this become another base for a group that wants to again bring down America?
Well, there is no doubt about it. That's what we were trying to convey to the American public. It's all being played right now. If we partner with civil society, NGOs, and seculars, and former bureaucracy, not to eliminate the Islamists, but to have them as part of the political landscape, then we may get a Libya that will have a slow path towards a mediocre democracy and then maybe a democracy, maybe. But if we don't do this, then the Islamists have a free ride. They are now in control of most of the cities. That's the warning I'm issuing right now. Gaddafi is the past. It's over. What we're going to see in the next few weeks is the Islamists are going to go fast or faster in seizing everything. The schools, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Information, so on and so forth.
Was it a mistake for us and NATO to get rid of Gaddafi?
No, that was too late because people rose against him. It's like in the case of Egypt or in Tunisia. The mistake was not to engage with the right partners when the authoritarian was going down. See, when those dictators goes down, we should not just be looking at them and then, clapping and thinking that next chapter is going to be a democracy like Sweden. When a dictator goes down, we need to immediately seek an alliance with the seculars, the moderates, the NGOs, and support them. Not sit down with the Muslim Brotherhood and cut deals with them, because the MBs have their own agenda. And yes, if we don't seek partnership with the good guys, the bad guys are going to seize, Libya and transfer them to the other camp in the region.
Very interesting, as always. Dr. Walid Phares, always fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.